Evening, everyone. It really is a privilege and an honor to be here amongst such illustrious company, both on the platform and amongst yourselves. And I must say, I think that after Dr. Lavasa's address and the booklet that's just come out, the publication, the section in there on South Africa is very good. So between those two, I don't know that I have very much to tell you anymore. Okay, so let's start. I think, Dr. Lavasa, thank you very much for bringing our attention to the fact that we are in a period of human history where fundamental changes are being imposed upon us by biophysical climate change impacts, but also the opportunity for us to really reshape the world and the way we run it and how we conduct ourselves in it and the outcomes we deliver for people and other species is possible at this time. So, you know, I've had the privilege to live through a period of history in my country where we managed to overthrow an oppressive regime. I now have the privilege to be in this phase of human history where we really can grasp with both hands the opportunity to remake the world. And in WWF South Africa, my day job, I work for WWF South Africa, and I am deployed by the president of our country to be a presidential climate change commissioner, which is a commission with the mandate to facilitate and convene the just transition in South Africa. So WWF South Africa has this slogan, I suppose you call it, that we all work under, called Food, Water and Energy for All, Forever. And the for all encapsulates both humans and the other species that we share the planet with. So it's food, water, and energy for all, forever, implying that we need to do this in a sustainable manner so that we don't deplete the resources that the world offers us. And I think that's quite a useful, you know, it just captures the challenge before us quite succinctly. So I'm going to tell you a bit of the story of how we even came to the just transition concept in South Africa. I think it was after the COP15 in Copenhagen. This idea of a just transition was floating around in civil society and labor circles and came home with, you know, our participants from that COP. Through our labor persons, through our civil society persons. And I think from then on, we were starting to think about that idea and so on. Then in about 2009, WWF got together with a labor research service organization called Naude. And, you know, we sort of started to say, well, what is it that labor is going to do about this transition? And don't you need to start considering climate change? And that it was a research service for the biggest trade union federation in South Africa called COSATU, the Congress of South African Trade Unions. They have about 500,000 members. And from that small seed, this whole concept has grown. And because it was initially led by labor, of course, it has a very strong emphasis on, you know, what are we going to do about workers in the coal supply chains, particularly, and other fossil fuels. But it has not stuck there. In South Africa, our concept of a just transition is quite encompassing. We see it as, you know, a chance to transform society in a whole lot of dimensions. The country faces a triple challenge of unemployment. We have about 35% unemployment. We have extreme poverty in our country. I'm sure in this room, many of those things echo for you as well. We have extreme poverty, and we have the worst Gini coefficient in the world. So we have the filthy rich and the filthy poor. And, I don't use the word filthy in a sense of insulting the people. I mean that the condition of poverty is unacceptable to anybody with any decency. So we looked at, can we address these triple challenges with the transition? And can we address things like gender equality and other social ills? Gender-based violence is ubiquitous in South Africa. So we're looking at a transition which really creates a kind of new world. And then our National Planning Commission developed a Vision 2030 and a National Development Plan. And a strong element in there was this whole idea of a just transition. And it's a just transition to a low carbon and climate resilient economy. So we're picking up on both dimensions, not just the energy sector. So, and even on the decarbonization side of our transition, we don't just look at energy, we're looking at all high emitting sectors. I use this term mitidaption. I don't think that as of yesterday, anything human beings do should not consider both, is this at least climate neutral on the mitigation side, if not better than climate neutral, but at least we can't be doing anything that is taking us on a path of increasing emissions. And is it adaptive? Is it climate resilient? We've got to think about both of those things all the time and not silo them, which they sometimes are. Okay, so our National Planning Commission then ran a process called the Pathways for a Just Transition. And very soon, the commissioner who was running that project realized that we are always in rooms talking to business and government. We don't go down to the people. And so they really had a process. You have states, we have provinces. They went to every single province and they tried to speak to communities on the ground and to workers on the ground. And what they came up with at the end is that we need to address water, land use and food, and energy access for all. So those are the sort of guiding lights for our transition. Then along comes the commission that I'm part of, the Climate Commission. In South Africa, we have almost in our post-apartheid DNA, this idea that you must build social compacts. So we have an institution called NEDLAC, where government, business, labor, and civil society have representation, and any one of those parties can call the others to come and discuss an issue of economic importance or labor importance. Anyway, so they had a job summit discussion trying to address the unemployment in the country and how to create more jobs. And in the framework agreement that came out of that summit was this concept of you need to establish a high-level commission to facilitate and convene, excuse me, the just transition. So the president then appointed the commission, and in that same culture of trying to develop a social compact, the commissioners are drawn from every sector. There's commissioners from business, from labor, myself from civil society, with many others from civil society. And all our ministers, the ministers are all de facto commissioners. So, you know, the attempt is to bring the highest government decision makers into the room right at the beginning and have those discussions. Because, of course, I'm sure this is the case everywhere. You know, the department and the Minister of Mineral Resources and Energy that does not necessarily have the same agenda as the Department of Environment. And those contradictions in government, where people are not always all pulling in the same direction, are precisely, you know, what the Commission has to work with and try and get consensus about. So I hope you wish us luck, and I expect to have many discussions with a lot of you through the 2 days so that we can help each other solve some of these issues. Thank you.